Today I'm going to show you one move on the forehand that 99% of professional players use, and after you learn it, your forehand will never be the same again. How can I be so sure? Just look at some of the best forehands the game has seen over the past 40 to 50 years. Forehands like Rafael Nadal, Roger Federer, Alcaraz, Sinner, Del Potro, and the list goes on. There is one key position all of these players get into that has allowed them all to dominate with powerful and heavy forehands. And if you could master one position on your forehand, this position would be it. So make sure you stick around to the end of the video where I'll show you some of my favorite drills to help you with this position so you can dominate with your own forehand. Now, what is this mystery position? This position is what's often referred as the slot position in tennis. And I know a lot of you have probably heard about this position when you watch these instructional videos. Now, before we get into why this position is so important, what I'm going to show you first are the 4 keys to a good slot position. So you know exactly what you should be looking for when you work on it yourself. Now, the first key to a good slot position is all about the racket positioning in relation to the incoming ball. This is vitally important. Why? You want the racket head to get beneath the level of the incoming ball. That's a general consensus. You want to get below the ball. Now, how far below should you be? At least 1 foot. That's a general guideline. Okay, so you get below the ball, just like you see here. Now, why do you want to get below the ball? The reason you want to get below the ball is now you have a lifting low to high swing out towards the target. And what does this lifting low to high swing give you? It gives you topspin. Topspin is very simple. All that's happening is the racket is moving from low to high around contact. So that's why in the slot position, you want to get that racket beneath the level of the incoming ball, so then you can lift out towards the target. But let's not just take my word for it and my videos. Let's take a look at the professional players and you'll see the very same thing on all of their forehands. So as you can see, every single top professional player does the same thing, getting that racket head below the ball. Now, the common problem we see with a lot of club players is instead of getting the racket head beneath the level of the incoming ball, they get the racket on the same line as the incoming ball. So now, instead of having a low to high lifting swing, circular motion, what they have is more of a horizontal swing to the ball, which means it's very difficult to impart topspin, and they're not going to be able to have any consistency, and they're not going to be able to control the power. So that's why getting below the ball is so important. Moving on to stage 2 of a good slot position, and that is all about the racket positioning in relation to the body now. Okay, and what you're going to see, the racket and hand, you want to get the racket and hand on the inside position. And what we mean by this is the racket and hand are now close to the body when it's in the slot position. Why do you want to get the racket and hand close to the body? The reason for this is now I can swing away from my body on the outer circumference. This is going to give me a longer lever, give me more leverage and more racket head speed when I come into contact. The inside out swing path is one of the major power generators on the ground strokes, and it's something that if you was going to get anything out of this video, get this, the inside out swing. Now again, let's take a look at the top professional players doing exactly the same thing, getting into that inside position and then swinging away from the body to contact. Now, the common problem we see with club players related to the position of the racket and the body, they don't get into the inside position in the slot position. What they have instead is more of what we call an outside slot position, where the racket and hand are too far away from the body. And now they lose leverage because the swing ends up coming in closer to the body. So the racket covers a much shorter distance in the same amount of time. So they lose power, but also they lose their hitting zone. So the swing breaks across the body too much and everything then comes tumbling down very quickly. So that's the common problem we see with club players, and that's what you want to avoid. Moving on to stage 3 of a good slot position, and that is all about the angle of your racket face when you get to this slot. Now, when you enter the slot position, the angle of your racket face is just as important as everything else. And what you want to see is when you do enter the slot position, you want the racket face to be closed. Okay, so the palm and the hit inside of the strings are pointing down towards the ground. Now, how far should it be closed? How much? General recommendation, get the racket at least 30 degrees closed in relation to the ground. Okay, and you can see this also from the side angle. Look at my racket face and see how it's sufficiently closed. Now, why do you want the racket face to be closed? The reason you want it to be closed is now, when you start to swing forward, the racket face will end up being vertical straight up and down at contact, as you can see from the side angle. Having the racket face vertical at contact like this is vitally important. I know a lot of you watching right now, you may struggle with missing the ball long. So you may lose all confidence in the forehand because as soon as you start to accelerate more, you just seem to miss more long. And the only reason you're missing the ball long is your racket face is opening up at contact. Now, I'll go into the reasons why this may be happening for your racket face opening up, but let's just first talk about when you do close the racket face, okay, in the slot position. I want you to watch. I'm going to put the racket down. And you can all do this when you're watching the video. Do it with me. And just face, imagine you stand on a tennis court and face the net. And just put your palm down at the side of you, okay, next to your side. And point the palm down to the ground. Now from here, just lift the shoulder up and lift the hand up and away from your body. And what do you notice? The more I lift my shoulder up, look what's happening with my palm. The palm is leveling out. And remember, the palm is just a representation of what your strings are doing. So if I do the same with my racket head, I just close it, and now I lift from the shoulder. The more I lift away, the more the strings are aligned vertical when I reach that contact point. Now, on the contrary, if you have more of this look, where the racket face is too open in the slot position, when I lift away, boom, racket face opens up. And that's why it's so important that you get that racket face sufficiently closed when you enter that slot position. But once again, let's take a look at the best players executing this component. Now, a quick word of caution: in order to get stage 3 and closing that racket face in the slot position, you do need to ensure that you're on a sufficient grip for the forehand. If you're ranging anywhere up towards the continental bevel 2, it's going to naturally open up your racket face more. Okay, so general recommendation, I'm not going to go into too much depth here because this is for another video, but try to get the index, knuckle and heel pad either on bevel 3, which is the Eastern forehand grip, or bevel 4, which is the semi-Western. Anywhere within that range is a perfect grip for your forehand. Just a quick note, if you do want a more in-depth look at the forehand, then we did recently produce a longer video on the 8 steps to a great forehand. So if you also want to just see that, a more in-depth look, then you can click up in the top right corner and you'll see that video. But let's get back into the slot position. Moving on to the final stage, and this is all about the wrist structure when you get into the slot position. Now, when you enter the slot position, what you want to see is the butt cap of the racket should be pointing generally to the direction of your contact point, where you want to contact the ball. So it's aligned, it's angled like this, okay, in the slot position. The reason you want this is it lays your wrist now in a laid back position, okay, it's important. Okay, you can also see this from the side. You can see this subtle laid back position. Now, the other thing is it now helps you achieve that full inside out swing. A lot of players have the opposite, where when they are in the slot position or nearing, the butt cap is like this. It's pointing in towards their body, which means their wrist also is not laid back. And now the racket is not truly getting that full inside out swing. So you want that butt cap aligned to the intended point of contact and the racket on the inside just like that. Now, obviously keep this in mind. You don't want to force it down here and get there too early, just laying back, because what you'll most likely do is then develop too big of a backswing. What you feel is you only get that position when the racket falls down and enters that slot position. Only when the racket enters is now where you're in this aligned position, just like this. Okay, and it's not too extreme. You don't need to fully extreme, bring it back like this. It's just butt cap generally pointing to the intended point of contact. That's a general recommendation. But now, once again, let's take a look at the best players and see how they achieve this when they enter the slot position. So as you just saw, when we slow the top players down, they actually get into very similar positions. And this is a key thing to remember, okay? Every professional player will have different styles. So they all look slightly different. But what they all have are the fundamentals, okay? So you don't want to go out and try to copy styles. What you want to do is copy the fundamentals. And then once you have the fundamentals, you can create your own little style that goes with it, as long as the fundamentals remain intact. That's the key. But now let's go on to some of the key drills that I like to use when working on this slot position. Drill number 1 is swinging underneath the ball. Now, swinging underneath the ball is an excellent way to force you into this slot position. And what this means is, instead of hitting the ball, your objective is to swing underneath it before that ball comes down and bounces. The reason why that's effective is, in order to swing underneath the ball, I have to get the racket low, okay? And generally when players do this also, they're getting the racket a little bit more on the inside, into that inside slot position. I'll demonstrate one, and you can also see this from the back angle. I'm going to do this with a self-feed, so you can do this by yourself. You don't need a partner. Now, when you are self-feeding, it's very important that you do give the ball just a little bit more height, because you want a little bit more height so then the ball bounces high enough so you can swing underneath. Okay, let me just show you how this looks. Starting from the ready position, I turn, toss high, go underneath, and finish. Okay, and you can see from the back angle, when I swing underneath the ball, you can see my slot position. Okay, watch again from the back angle. I turn, high, underneath, and hold. And that's an excellent way. And you can reinforce this again and again until you feel how that racket is falling down into that slot position. Once you feel more comfortable with that, then what you can do is essentially trick your brain. So you think that you're going to swing underneath the ball, but then at the last second, you make contact. So again, you're forcing yourself into the slot position before you start to swing forward. And this may feel mechanical, keep that in mind. If it feels mechanical, so be it, that's okay. Over time, this will click into place. Let me show you how it looks. So I turn, I think swing underneath, but then I hit. Just like this. Show you another one. I turn, I think swing underneath, and I hit. And you can see I'm going at a very controlled pace when I do this. I'm not trying to kill the ball. My whole focus is just allowing that racket to fall underneath the ball, and then I can lift out to my target. And that's the first drill, swinging underneath the ball. Drill number 2 is stopping in the slot position. Now for drill number 2, what we're going to do is, it's similar to swinging underneath the ball, but what you're going to do is, within the self-feed, you're going to toss the ball, but you're going to let the racket fall and then stop in the slot position. And by stopping in the slot position, you now have time to just check and make sure that you're in the correct position here. Once you look down and you see you're in the correct position, then you can swing to the finish. Okay, so again, you are breaking it down into chunks right now, but you have to in the beginning in order to get the feeling for what this should feel like. So let me show you how this should look in the self-feed. I turn, complete a half turn, just like this. Now, you can see from the side angle, I'm bringing my arm at approximately a 45-degree angle into the court so the ball is not coming behind me. I toss the ball and I go down. And I check this position. Okay, all looks good. Now, I get this from Greg, OTI Master Instructor Greg Ludlow. He's a fantastic instructor, and I've got a lot of things from him. Earlier in the video where we have this one where you move the palm away from you, I also got that from Greg. I forgot to credit him on that. But also I got this from Greg, and that is, what the general feeling you want to have is, as the ball bounces, you're going down and you're stopping. Let me show you. You turn, toss, down with the ball. Okay, see that? Turn, toss, down with the ball, and stop. Okay, once I feel comfortable, now I'm going to start to complete the swing. So I go turn, down, hit. And you can see it is very mechanical right there, but it's forcing me to that slot position. Down, hit. And then when you get better at it, then you can have more of a complete fluid motion. So now it goes down, hit, more complete and more fluid. And that's the final progression. Moving on to the final drill, and that is using the high, low, high mantra as you hit. Now, one of the best things I like to do as I'm hitting is have a mantra or something in mind which keeps it simple so it doesn't overcomplicate, but it also helps me with the general swing thought. And the swing mantra I like to use is a high, low, high mantra. So I'm actually going to say that out loud as I hit the ball. And I just got the ball machine set up here, and I'm just going to hit, a couple of balls, like 10, 15 balls, and I'll show you exactly how I would do it if I was working on this. Okay, high, low, high. Got to warm up a couple here. I'm hit for a while. High, low, high. High, low, high. High, low, high. And as you can see, I'm not over hitting the ball. I'm going nice and controlled. Working on that high, low, high. High, low, high. Really lifting that ball. High, low, high. A little close to that one. High, low, high. And as you can see, that's how I would work on it when I'm using the ball machine. Let me just stop the machine. Okay, and by the way, you don't need a ball machine for this if you don't have a machine. You can have a partner or a coach feed you balls. Or, worst case scenario, just have a partner rally with them down the middle and just do that. Just say that out loud. High, low, high. High, low, high. Okay? And that is going to help you with this lifting swing. So that sums it up for today's video on the slot position. And just to summarize, the first thing we did is we had to get an understanding of what this slot position looks like. Then from there, we understood why it's so important to get to that slot position. We then saw that all the top professional players do exactly the same thing. And then we just finished it off with 3 simple drills, which you can use. Now, if you want to continue this improvement on your forehand and you feel that you want a more in-depth look at each component in the swing, then I did recently do a video on the 8 steps to a great forehand. And that essentially is a 30-minute long video that explains all the key stages throughout the swing. So if you're interested in that, you can click on the video right now. There'll be a banner up somewhere where you can click it. But otherwise, thank you very much for joining me today in today's video. And if you did enjoy it, please like, subscribe to the channel, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next one.